Step into our little cinema of secrets, where performance and truth blur until you can't tell where the scene stops and the soul begins. You're tuned in to Turkish series stars, the corner of the internet that doesn't flinch when love stories turn into battlegrounds and glossy press tours reveal a pulse underneath. Today isn't just about a project arriving on a platform, it's about the tremor building beneath a Netflix release that insiders insist feels more like a confession than a show. We're opening the doors to games of passion, or as the Istanbul insiders whisper, Tutku Oyunları, a production so saturated with feeling that the energy on set reportedly clings to the actors long after the camera's cut. This time, the spotlight falls on Elsen Sangu and Baris Arduc, a pairing whose chemistry has lived rent-free in the collective memory, and now, it seems, is being pushed to a darker, rawer place. Settle in, subscribe to Turkish series stars, tap join if you want to step behind the velvet rope with us, and let your likes and comments be the applause we hear from the balcony. Time to walk into a house where every smile is a strategy and every silence carries a secret. Usually, promotional chats are polished, safe, and forgettable. Actors run through their lines about teamwork, scripts, and gratitude. But once in a while, a sentence lands like a glass shattering on a tiled floor. That moment arrived when Elsen Sangu, poised as ever, chose not to dodge the question of betrayal. Asked about the moral core of games of passion, she didn't soften her answer. When you betray, she said, you set in motion the same wound for yourself. It wasn't a slogan. It sounded like a verdict. Deeper still, she peeled back another layer. Being deceived, she admitted, is her greatest private terror. If I find out I've been betrayed, something in me ends, she shared, voice low, a tremor that didn't feel rehearsed. I don't go back to who I was. Not with a partner. Not with a friend. Those words echoed across feeds and headlines because they felt unfiltered, because they tapped into the quake in the stomach that so many know and rarely name. For us at Turkish series stars, her confession is a skeleton key to the series, and to the character of Funda. In Games of Passion, Elçin becomes Funda, a renowned painter whose hands can conjure beauty while her heart learns what ugliness feels like up close. She's the strong center of her world, the person who keeps the colors balanced and the walls upright. Yet the crack begins quietly, a change in her husband's rhythm, a note in the air she recognizes but dreads. What Elçin shared privately mirrors Funda's dread, this dance with the shadow just out of frame. Funda keeps working, keeps mothering, keeps hosting, but inside she's bracing for the blow she can't face head-on. Reports from set say Elçin hasn't always left Funda at the studio door. Especially on the days when Funda's illusions snap, Elçin has had to step into a quiet corner, letting the tears fall before she could re-enter her own skin. This isn't showy method, it's what happens when a character's pain holds on, when fiction reminds you of the fear you confessed on camera. The tragedy that Games of Passion constructs rests on three figures whose every choice spirals the other's fate. There is Funda, our artist refusing to look at the fault line. There is Ilker, outwardly composed and inwardly unraveling. And there is Nazlı, the intruder who isn't really a stranger at all. On the page, Nazlı appears to be the caretaker who steps into the household to help, a figure we've seen in stories for decades. But here, she is more than a plot device. She is the catalyst who reads the room like a psychologist and plays it like a musician. Melis Sezen, unforgettable as Darren in Sadakats's, returns to the terrain of temptation, but this time the ground is rougher, colder, and scarred. Nazlı is a study in absence, a young woman whose emptiness becomes a tool, whose soft voice and quiet footsteps hide a mind that maps weaknesses instantly. She doesn't just cross a line, she moves lines around. Crew members, in carefully worded whispers, call Melis's performance unervingly precise. The voice she uses for Nazlı, a tone that doesn't rise even when the stakes do, has reportedly unsettled even the technicians who've seen everything. Between takes, she finds a corner to stand in stillness, letting the character drain from her face before she dares joke with the crew again. When work resumes, the chill returns. This atmosphere bleeds into what we see. A set heavy with unspoken things, where eye contact lasts 1 second too long and a hand placed on a shoulder means danger as much as comfort. And into this pressure cooker steps Ilker, played by Baris Arduc. In lesser hands, Ilker might be dismissed as the expected weak link, the man whose choices are driven by appetite. But Baris refuses that lazy route. He digs into a man made of contradictions, confident in public, stammering in private, attentive and absent at once. A person who is both protector and saboteur. He doesn't perform Ilker as a cliché, he excavates him, revealing a person whose poor decisions have roots, whose vulnerability becomes the door through which Nazli walks. To prepare, Baris reportedly insisted on finding Ilker's quietest scenes first, the closed-door moments where words fail and breath speaks, and only then layering on the fallout. Director Mert Baikal pushed him to stop smoothing edges, to hold the tension in his body rather than discharge it. Some days the work left him too shaken to banter between shots. Melis matched that intensity with her guarded stillness. Elsen met it with trembling honesty. Shared exhaustion has a way of binding actors to a story's truth. Now it's your turn, Turkish series stars community. When Elsen says a cheater undoes themselves, do you agree? Is betrayal a boomerang we throw and eventually catch in our own palms, or is that a poetic salve meant to comfort the wounded party? And tell us, are you ready to see Melis Sezen step into the other woman's space once more, or are you worried the industry will trap her in it? Drop your reflections on loyalty, casting, and whether punishment lives inside the betrayer or outside them. Behind the drama, PD Yapim and Netflix have constructed a visual grammar that speaks before anyone opens their mouth. Funda's studio, we're told, took days to dress until it felt less like a set and more like a mind you could walk into. The canvases aren't generic, they echo her mood, sometimes unfinished as if she's afraid of what the final brushstroke might say. Across the house, Nazli's quarters are intentionally spare. The walls are darker, the angles less forgiving, the light coming in like a trickle rather than a flood. In Ilker's office and the family's shared spaces, light cuts faces in half, one side lit, the other dim, a choice that whispers there's always another version of a person standing just off camera. This spatial narration ensures that every frame has a second story hidden in plain sight. Pair Elsen Sangu with Melis Sezen, and the tabloids will do the rest. Rumors of rivalry spun swiftly. Whispered claims about onset friction, about competition measuring every glance. The people on the inside reject the narrative of animosity. They don't call the relationship a blossoming friendship either, they describe a measured professional distance. And in this case, that reserve may be a secret weapon. Funda and Nazli aren't allies, they are adversaries in a quiet war. Too much warmth between the actresses could soften edges meant to slice. Keeping the lines crisp relieves them of having to act suspicion, it simply exists. Why is the buzz rising instead of flattening into another headline about infidelity? Because Games of Passion doesn't reduce its characters to motives, it layers them with power, class, and control. This is a story about manipulation performed with a straight face, about the economic gaps that turn a home into a ladder and a person into a rung, about the violence that doesn't leave bruises you can photograph, about obsession that looks like devotion. Netflix is said to be filing the series under dark psychological drama, a choice that signals ambition beyond the melodrama label. With Turkish series crossing borders faster than ever, the expectation is simple. Tutku Oyunları won't just trend at home, it will travel with subtitles and still sting. And the biggest promise sits in Nazli's buried backstory, connections that tie her to both Funda and Ilker long before she carries a tray into their kitchen. The show teases a puzzle box that clicks into place one episode at a time, each solution making everything feel more precarious, not less. The platform, of course, is playing coy about when they'll unleash it. Word is, Netflix is using uncertainty as oxygen, keeping the premiere date in a sealed envelope to cultivate a murmur that becomes a roar. Some whispers predict an unexpected drop any day, others warn the calendar might shuffle for a global rollout. What seems certain is that the finishing process is meticulous. Color is being sculpted until each room hums with mood. The score is tuned to crawl under your skin instead of sitting politely in the background. Every shadow designed on set is being honored in post. No rough edges left by accident, only the sharp ones they choose to keep. For the leads, this isn't merely another credit, it's a trial by fire. Elsen Sangu isn't content with making Funda sympathetic, she wants to make her alive enough to haunt you. Baris Arduc isn't content with playing a sinner, he wants to show you the cost of the sin. Elçin isn't content with being readable. She wants you to wonder if what you're seeing is the truth or the bait. If Games of Passion hits the note it's aiming for, it will sit in that uncomfortable place where you can't declare a single victim and close the case. The question clangs in the air, who suffers more when a marriage runs on lies, the person kept in the dark, or the one forced to live inside a performance every hour of the day? We'll keep our eyes trained on the shadows. The second a trailer slips online or Netflix stamps a date, we'll be here at Turkish series stars, frame by frame, reading the clues aloud. If this foray into the darker shades of love, loyalty, and art gripped you, press like so the algorithm hears that pulse. Subscribe to Turkish series stars and tap the bell so the next drop doesn't pass you by. And if you want to fuel more deep dives like this one, the join button stands ready. Until we meet again, remember this lesson from Tutku and Lari. In the contests we wage with desire and truth, nobody walks away untouched, some simply learn how to carry their scars more quietly.